Hey, g'day everyone. Coach Ray here. That's me up in the top box, up in the top corner. I'm a triathlon and marathon running coach, and I'm here with Arnaud Selukov of 859 Coaching, and also the 2016 Ultraman Australian champion. Bonjour, Arnaud.
Bonjour.
Welcome. Um,
Thank you.
uh,
Thank you for having me.
no problems at all. That was a very quick introduction of yourself. Are you able to expand on my brief introduction and explain to the viewers and listeners a bit more about your background?
Well, I've started triathlon almost 30 years ago now, and so that's a long, long time ago. And I think for the first 10 years, it was the beginning of the 90s. So I started actually in 1990, so it's 28 years. And at this time, triathlon was
Same
very
year I
different
started
from
as
what.
well.
Yeah,
Good year to
it
start
was
triathlon.
very different. Yeah, it was very, very different from what it is. And I mean, we had basically no idea about coaching or what we were doing. So we were just doing like more or, I mean, when the we were just trying to run like 900 meters and we were just doing more and more. And sometimes it was working, sometimes it was not working. So it was fun time. And at this time, I was just off my army time. And, this is where I started doing sport, because when I was a kid, I was absolutely not at all in sport. I was more into partying, but like, I was very good at partying, and so and I mean, the good thing of partying and also all the bad thing, and I think in the back of my mind, it was not very much what I wanted to be. And when you keep on doing something and you know that it's bad for you. And when I was at the army, I had the chance to start doing a bit of sport, and it really changed my view of everything. And when I ended up the army, I started triathlon. I just, at this time there was no internet, there was nothing, so it was more like you see a flyer, and you record a number, or you buy the newspaper, and there was a small ad for a local triathlon, and this is how it all started. And I started by doing like sprint distance, and but very, very, very fast I got attracted by everything that was longer. And I did my first Mark Allen, because I remember having picture of Mark Allen in my car. It was just like, he was everything I wanted to be. And
Yep.
and yeah, it was such a different time. I don't know if the younger athlete, they can understand today, because the only access to the news about triathlon at this time was buying the Triathlete magazine, and it was coming once a month, and usually it was 2-3 months delay. So I remember it was usually January or February where we were getting the news from Kona, and it was the only way we can get the result from Kona was like 3-4 months after. And now we are all pissed when the live coverage is not working. So it's, I mean, different time, different period. So this is how it all started. And yeah, triathlon has been. I can really say that triathlon has completely changed my life. I mean, for the best.
Yep.
And the first 10 years it was more like leisure practicing. And then in 2002 I had a big accident. I was building my house and I fall from the roof. I fall from 9 meters and I broke my back. And I stayed for a long time without knowing if I can walk again. So
That's
complicated at this time. And actually, 11 months after the accident, I was finishing the Umbraman. So because I've stayed 11 days in the hospital without knowing if I can walk. And the day I've been able to walk, I didn't want to get surgery, because I think I'm not brave enough for surgery. So I decided to take the brace. And I've been living in the brace for 6 months. And the day I've been able to walk again, I just decided I was going to do Umbraman. It was for me like a big challenge. And it was not pretty, but I went through. And I think mentally was a big step also for me, just to prove myself that you can do one of the hardest race in the world, even when you don't get the green light from the doctor. So
that's
was fun time. And so I restarted a bit triathlon after that. And then in 2006 we decided to move from Europe to Asia, because I was working pretty much half of my time in Asia. This time I was 2 weeks in France, 2 weeks in China. And then we had the opportunity to go working in Singapore. So late 2006, we moved to Singapore. And when we arrived in Singapore, I mean, I'm in the expat life, not being in the party world anymore, not being in the drinking world anymore, not being in, I mean, all the shit going around when you are a kid. I just picked up triathlon very seriously. And for the first time of my life, I got a coach, and I registered for Busselton in 2009, and was my first return for the Iron distance. And I went 10:38, if I'm correct. And my dream was still to go to Kona one day, and that's where I discovered that 10:38 was not good enough, and I decided to take the bull by the horn, and I took a coach. And the good thing about Singapore is, Singapore being a very small place, is just like 45 kilometers long. So it's very easy to meet up your mate in the morning to go training. You know, when you are in France, your mate are living in a radius of like 100 kilometers. So you don't go riding in the morning with your mate living 3 hours from you. So Singapore was very easy to go riding with a group, was very easy to have an access to the swimming pool, was very easy to have an access to a track, because everything is very close and nearby.
Yeah, it's literally a stone throw away.
Yeah, and it was good, and to do a bit more, and to do a bit more seriously, and you know, when you start to have a training program, I mean, instead of trying to fit your training time inside your free time, I was organizing my working time around my training program. So the mindset was completely different, and it gave me at this time a bit more routine. And we all know that routine is it's very, very important. And training with a group. I believe that because I haven't been doing a lot of sport before I was 20, my athletic age was still quite young, and I think I'm a bit lucky also with my constitution, because I'm very barely injured, and I've been able to ramp up the mileage and to ramp up the volume. And so 2009 I did Busso, I went 10:38. The year after I did Busso, I went 9:42, and the year after I went 9:21. And this is where I get my first Kona. And for me, it was just like almost if a 20 years of chasing my dream really came true.
Yeah.
And was just fantastic. And when I went to Kona, this, you know, a one shot for me. And then you get hooked about that. And you know, the performance thing is there. And when you have a competitive spirit, it's, and you just want to go back. And as stupid as it can seem, I'm not ready to give back my slot on the pier. And since I've been qualifying every year, and even if I don't want to say I'm not enjoying Kona, I really enjoy Kona, but I never race well in Kona. I have a big sweating issue, and I know that I'm going to Kona every year to have my ass kicked. But at the end of the day, that's still the biggest race on the business, and that's a race. I mean, and you know, when you've been chasing a dream for so long, once you finally made, you know, you reach there, and this is ground zero of triathlon. Oh. There are a lot of very nice races around the world. Some of the races are so much better than Kona, but this is ground zero, and this is where, you know, today you have a lot of things happening around Kona. You can meet, you know, for me, I started triathlon in the 90s, so all the Mark Allen, the Dave Scott, all these guys, the Kenny Gla, they are part of my history. I still have the book of these guys. I still keep the old triathlete magazine, and I'm going through them. So for me, just going to Kona is so refreshing. Kona, I mean, I've been in Kona every year since 2012, and you can see that Kona is becoming, I mean, it's becoming bigger. It's a very different race from what it was in the 90s, but I think Kona is still Kona. And for me also as a coach, I think it's very important today, because we cannot deny that when we have triathletes coming to us, the majority of these guys, their dream is to go to Kona because it's so big, it's so important,
it's the pinnacle, it's the mecca.
Exactly, and be able to bring people to Kona with you, being able to show people that we can qualify year after year, and it's something which is somehow doable, even if you are 50, even if you have a family, even if you have a job. I think it's very important, and it's good for the guy we are coaching, that to show them that it can be done. If you are willing to put the job, it can be done.
Awesome. Now, we met each other back in 2016 at Ultraman Australia, where I was crew chief for one of my athletes, and you won the event in basically a touch under 22 and a half hours, which is pretty damn amazing. Not everyone listening or watching is going to be familiar with what's involved with Ultraman. Are you able to run over it and give us a quick summary of how your race went for you?
Yeah. So, the first time I heard about Ultraman, it was certainly about 2012 with a couple of my Aussie friends. We were in Singapore. We had a year-end celebration after Busselton, and at this time I was still drinking, so we got pretty much piss drunk, and one guy was having an iPad with him, and we ended up registering for Ultraman, and when we woke up the next morning, it was just like, what have we done? So we pulled out from Ultraman, but I think the seed was planted, and I love any kind of triathlon. I love as much sprint as I love an Ironman. I just love racing. But this Ultraman thing was a very different beast, and the idea that it was on a 3 days event. So for the people who are not familiar, Ultraman is a very old concept. It has been born in Kona, in Hawaii, in 1993, if I'm correct. And it has been run every year since, except 2 years where the race didn't happen. And then there was different races who appear around the world. There is one in Israel today. There is one in Spain. There is one in Canada. There is one in Florida. I think there is one in Mexico too.
There's one in Brazil, I think, as well. Yeah.
Yes.
They're popping up.
Yep. Not every race are under the Ultraman brand, but the distance are pretty much the same. So it's a 3 days event. So the day one, it's a 10K swim plus 145 bike. The day two is about 275 kilometers ride. That's a long way. And the day three, it's a double marathon. So I was really attracted by the idea that you have 3 days. So you have to really think about how you are going to organize your life between the 3 days, how you are going to organize your nutrition, because everybody that have done an Ironman, you know that after an Ironman, if you are only on sport nutrition, the next day your stomach and your digestive system is pretty much screwed, and you don't want to eat anything else and anything which is looking like a gel or a bar. So as a coach, I was really interested about this part. And I also wanted to try to see how the training was going to be different between preparing for an Ironman and preparing for an Ultraman. So basically what I did was I just prepared for an Ironman and on the swim and on the bike. For one reason is because living in Singapore, the weather is always hot and always humid, and it's very hard to get done very long training session on running, because you get so dehydrated. Then you need like 4, 5, 6 days to recover, and it's so hard on the body that, for me, I just think that didn't make any sense. So when I decided to pick up to register for Ultraman Australia in Nusa in 2016. At this time, I was coached by Cam Brown, so we talk about that, and because running has, I don't want to say been my weakness, but I always consider myself as not a great runner, not a good runner, and living in Singapore, I have a very, very high sweating rate in the heat and in a humid environment, because at Ironman race pace, I'm sweating 3.3 liters per hour in Singapore.
That's a lot to replace.
Yeah, and basically you cannot replace that because you are just going to upset your stomach and then have the eye issue, and so that's why the Kona issue, and that's why I was not clocking a lot of mileage in Singapore. So the plan was to do a bit differently. So that's why this year I backed up Wanaka and Topo.
Yep.
And then I was ramping up a lot of swimming, like long swimming session, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9K, and a longer bike ride. So the chance we had in Singapore, because it's very hard in Singapore to do like 10 hours bike ride. So what I was doing, I was waking up about midnight and riding for 6 hours, taking the first ferry going to Bintan, which is an Indonesian island, like 45-minute ferry. Then we were going on Bintan, clocking a 6 hours ride, going back home, and riding 2 hours back to my place. So that was the way we were working it. And I would like to say it has been working quite well, but for me, I still believe the key was to make the double Wanaka and Topo.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it was the clever thing that we can do from backing up big days after big days after big days. And to be honest, when I arrived for Ultraman Australia, I had absolutely no idea of what was going to happen. I was having no idea of what I was going to pull out from the 10K swim. I was having no idea if I can run 84K because I never run 84K before. So
to be honest, I was in the same situation with Humps, the athlete I was coaching, in terms of we were basically covering new ground. We were going into the unknown in a lot of respects. And it sounds like you were in the same boat exactly.
Yeah, and you know that's the beauty of this sport is, I think at some point, because if we keep doing the same thing day in, day out, at some point there is just no more adaptation of the body, there is no more improvement, there is nothing. And I just like to challenge myself sometimes to try to do something. And this is also, I think, some of my athletes, they also see it in my coaching, the way I'm coaching them. It's sometimes, once in a while, they just are going to have like a session, they have no idea if they are going to make it. But because I believe that at some point, we are human, and the history of the human being has been made of exploration and trying to push the boundary a bit further. I mean, look, people were living in the same place at the same time, and then they discover the America, and then they went to Australia, and then we went to the moon, and now we are talking to go to Mars. And I think this is the history of this is human history. And for me, it's pretty much the same in terms of training and in terms of coaching. Is trying to do something different, something that sometimes you can have your ass kicked, and it has happened to me many times. But if we don't try, we don't know. And I love the saying, we don't know how tough we are until being tough is the only choice we have.
Yeah, that's very true.
And for me, Ultraman was that was one of the reasons why I did Ultraman. The other reason, which is, I mean, very honestly, I just want to say, I just wanted to prove to my kids that their dad was not done yet, and we can try to do something different, something a bit crazy, and I mean, I've been lucky because I had the perfect race. I had a great team support. We had fantastic condition this year. I think I was certainly in peak shape when I arrived there. And mentally, I found myself in the lead at the end of day one. And then your mindset is very different, because if you are in the chase, I mean, the strategy can be very different. When you are in the lead, for me, I just wanted to stay in the lead as long as I can. Yeah. So, I had a great swim. I really swam hard, and I think there is still some footage that can be found on YouTube. And I remember when Tim Franklin caught me, it was about the 6K mark, and we were swimming maybe 1:25 at this time, and it was great feeling to be, in this beautiful water in Nusa and swimming there with great. It was just the perfect day. So yeah, Ultraman was a great experience. That's changed a bit my view of. It was like if you discover a new page in a book, you've been reading for a long time, because triathlon I mean, we can say whatever we want, but triathlon, that's still quite a selfish sport. And today in Ironman racing, I was just giving an example recently to one of my friend. He was asking me how I found Ultraman different with Ironman racing. And I was just telling him the story because in 2017 I did Kona Ironman and I did Ultraman in Kona also. When I was in the transition in the race morning in Kona, I asked the guy beside me if I can borrow his pump to pump my tire, and the guy just said no. When I was at Ultraman, like 6 weeks after, my team support got lost, and I was in the lead on day 2 of the bike, and I was having no nutrition, nothing. And the team support from Rob Gray came to me to ask if I need something because they just saw that my team support was not there anymore.
Yeah, it's the three principles of Ultraman, isn't it? In terms of looking after everyone, and I forget the Hawaiian terms for it, but just basically sharing the love.
Ohana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we did the same. We helped out a few people, and someone crashed in front of us, and their support crew weren't there, so we patched them up with our first aid kit while Humps rode on ahead and sorted out his bike and got him back going. And I know at different times, particularly in the run in 2017 when I wasn't there, he got looked after by a few other people as well at different times. And what goes around in the universe comes around in the end, doesn't it?
Exactly. So, and it's a small field. It's just about 40 people, and I think it's just nice. It's a different kind of doing our sport. And on the other hand, that's still super competitive because I remember even if we had very great, human relation with Tim Franklin and in Nusa because he was in the second position, and there was Adi Whitaker also who was very close. That was still close racing. That was still fighting to the end. And
this year, a 3-day race, you only won by about 20 minutes or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was about 20 minutes. And it was the same this year in Ultraman in Hawaii because at the end of day 1, I lost a lot of time on Rob Gray and Jerry. I was in 3rd position of day 1, and this guy, Rob, was like 45 minutes ahead of me, and Jeremy was like 20 minutes ahead of me. And then on day 2, I won the stage on day 2, and I was in the second position. I was just like 15 minutes down on Rob, and Jeremy was 15 minutes down on me. So when I started day 3, was just like I wanted to take any kind of risk I can, trying to scare them as much as possible. So I started the run as crazy as possible. I think I went to the first 5K in sub 20 minutes.
Wow.
I was just hoping that because I knew that the year before Rob ditched his race plan and he tried to push harder and then he blew out at the end of the run, and I was expecting him to come with me and maybe blow out, but it never happened. The only guy who blew out was me. But, the funny thing is, I think around the marathon mark, we were all, if we have stopped the race, we were all in like a couple of minutes just because Jeremy was far in front of me and Rob was coming to me. So this is great racing. This is, Ultraman is great. I really love it. And I'm doing Ultraman Canada in this is the biggest race of the season for me.
Awesome. Now you've had a very successful Ironman and iron distance career racing all around the world. Do you have a particular iron distance event that you've enjoyed the most and why?
That's a tough one. There are 2 races definitely that are standing out for me. That's Wanaka. Wanaka is. I'm so sad that they've ditched the race. I think it's the wrong decision. I've told them, but this is what it is. We have to live without. But Wanaka was a fantastic race. The race was the most honest course you can have. The place is stunning, and I had great racing there. So I raced 2 years in a row. I raced in 2016 and 17, And for us European, racing in New Zealand, it's like racing on another planet. It's just on the other side of the world. It's so far, the seasons are completely opposed. So when you are living in France, if you want to get ready for Wanaka, basically you have to train during the whole winter.
Yeah.
So it was giving a bit more excitement about the whole thing. So, but yes, Wanaka, because it's a smaller field, it used to be a smaller field. It's it's a very different feeling from big Ironman race where you just feel that you are part of a business. Wanaka, it was more like if you are part of a family. And for me, obviously, the other one is Roth, Challenge Roth. I don't know. I just love this race. One of the coaches I've been working for a long time with was Jürgen Zach.
Yeah.
And
he was a legend of the sport in the 90s.
Yes. Yeah. He won Roth, I think, 5 times at the time when it was an Ironman. So he brought me to Roth, and that's just it's on the opposite end of Wanaka, because it's the biggest field you can get today on an Iron distance. I think it's close to 5,000 participants, including the relay, and the level is always amazing there. And when I raced the first time in Roth, I went 9:04, and this is where the seed has been planted in my mind that maybe I can go sub 9. That was just something that was completely, I never thought I can do that. So the year after, I came back and I had, I didn't race that well. I went 9:17. And then the year after, I decided to do Australia. And I was sure I was going to go sub 9 in Australia, that the race was almost done before I raced it. And I had a shit race. I went 9:28, and I was so disappointed with myself. And Roth was 2 weeks after, and Jürgen called me and he said, I got you a slot for Roth, so you just come with me in Roth. And I went in Roth, and I went 8:59:22.
Awesome.
and actually, I didn't know I went 8:59 because my GPS stopped working, and I was just running like completely blind. And when I crossed the finish line, I was a big achievement for me, and it was really something that I'm proud of it. And I think if I die tomorrow, I just would love my kids to put on my tombstone that this guy went 8:59. and that's also the reason for the 8:59 coaching.
Yeah, it's a very fitting number, very prestigious time to achieve.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, because a lot of people, they don't understand why 8:59 coaching, but you have all the people who are doing triathlon for a long time, they just get it. And when they come to it, because I think it talks to a lot of people, and for me, the first time I went sub 9, I was 45, so it doesn't happen very often in the 45-49 age group.
Yeah.
Age group in Roth. And Roth is such a fantastic event. It's like if they have the Tour de France coming every year at the same place at the same time. And the Tour de France in France, we had the Tour de France passing by our village, but you see the rider for like 30 seconds and then they are gone.
Yeah.
Roth, you have athletes passing in front of your house for like 8, 9, 10, 12 hours during the day. And the German, they know how to party. So the morning when you go to the race start, you already have the people with the barbecue outside and ready to...
And the bells, hop, up, 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 up.
Yes, be part of the event. And that's just a fantastic ambience. It's a great event. I really encourage everybody to try to do it once, because that's a great race.
Yeah, it's one of my goals to get over and do that once. I've coached a few athletes that have gone over there, and the stories coming back are always amazing, particularly Solenberg Hill and the atmosphere.
This is what I'm saying to my athlete, and they say, what is so different with Roth? Because it's not like a dream destination like Kona. It's not like Wanaka where the scenery is just bloody amazing. But it's just, this is the countryside. This is a beautiful place of the world, and this is the central journey. This is a simple place in the world where people are just living a simple life, and
Yeah.
they have this massive event arriving in Roth where you have 5,000 participants, where you have 200,000 people coming to watch the race. That's just, just Solarberg last year, I think there was 35,000 people. They are spread on like 800 meters. It's mind blowing. So yeah, I really encourage. The expo is 4 or 5 times bigger than Kona Expo. That's perfectly oiled organization. I think it's one of the greatest
Felix
race,
does an
and it has
amazing
been
job organising it, doesn't he?
Yeah, and Felix is a very nice guy. I have the chance to meet him a few times, and I always remember in 2016 at the prize ceremony, the first thing he did when he took the microphone, he said, "Okay, first of all, I have to apologize because the last finisher yesterday didn't have warm water in the shower, so it's going to be fixed for next year." These, these guy,
the little things count, don't they?
Exactly, and he's there for shaking hand to every people. They are very accessible people. You don't feel that you are shaved clothes from like when you are doing other race. Be accessible financially. It's it's a nice place. People are friendly. The accommodation is, it's quite cheap. So I think everybody can do that. The course is stunning. The course, everybody's saying is short, and I've raced it 5 times, and the run was 41.8, but that's just 400 meters short. But the bike course, there is no drafting. It's, people have to understand that everybody's complaining about the drafting in Kona and some other bigger race, but just go to Roth. If you get caught for drafting in Roth, that's a 5-minute penalty, and that's a 1 kilometer shame loop you have to run on the run. So basically, if you get caught for drafting, you're out of the race.
Yeah.
So, and the roads are super. This is nice black tarmac. This is rolling terrain. This is an honest course, and now, yeah, I think it's a must do for every triathlete. The experience is just great. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, Roth is the must do, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kona's the pinnacle, but Roth is the well-oiled machine, German efficiency, and
exactly
an amazing experience. I want to sort of
and yes, please
carry on.
No, yeah. I just wanted to say that that's two massive big race, which is meaning a lot for every triathlete. But Roth is just something different. And when you are a top athlete, you start the first wave, and that's one of the things of Roth which I really love is, and I think this is where Kona must go, is you have its wave start. The first wave, it's all the pro male and female, all the sub 9 guy and the top age grouper. So the first wave, it's a 200 people field, and you start with the top guy. And of course, when you start with guy like Frodo or Daniel Arif or all these top guys, the field is sprayed quite easily. But this is a succession of small wave with 200 or 300 participants, and that's one of the reasons why there is little drafting. It's just because you have gap between the wave, and the fastest guy are starting in front. So the fastest are always the fastest. So they are always
riding away from everyone else.
Exactly. So and it's a very different feeling, and for everybody. And at the end of the day, what are we racing for? Are we racing for another? Are we racing for placing in our age group? I'm racing for my age group. So most of the wave being age group wave, I really believe that Kona must do that. If we have like a 10-minute gap between each wave, with each wave being an age group in Kona, that would be fantastic. And especially in Kona, where everybody is racing for his age group, nobody is going for an overall placing, beside maybe 3 or 4 guys trying to kick out some pro ass. But that's one of the big advantage of Roth. It's just a very fair race.
Yeah. If we sort of move in from the world view and come down and just focus on New Zealand, and it's a shame Challenge Wanaka is no longer the full, but they still have the half. You've done both Ironman New Zealand and Taupo, as well as Challenge Wanaka, and you've done them a couple of times each. How would you describe these events, and what did you love about them, and how did they contrast as well?
Oh, they are two very different race, and first of all, I mean, one is in the North Island, one is in the South Island. So for the people who are not familiar with New Zealand, it's like two different countries. And as much as you can still see people when you go in the North Island, in the South Island, you can just cross part of the island without seeing much people living there. And very different place. I love both islands, and both races are fantastic event. I just love Wanaka more because for one reason, I think the bike course in Wanaka is just absolutely stunning. And I think the bike course in Taupo, it's not the best that Taupo have to offer. I think it's just the bike course is boring as shit. And there are a lot of very nice places going around Taupo. And I think they can. I mean, of course, then your organization is more complicated. You have more road closure, and you have all this stuff. But just talking about the course around Taupo, there are some fantastic road that can be used for environment that would make the race much more interesting for me. So that's the big difference. I love the swim course in Taupo. I love the run course because I think it's a very honest course. It's a tough running course. But my money is going for Wanaka. It's just because it's a very different feeling. You have, most of the run in Wanaka is off road. When you are running along this river, it's just mind blowing.
It's nice and cool and refreshing down that section, and come back into Gun Road, and
it's beautiful. And the town of Wanaka also is a different feeling. But when you have perspective on something like for me, I'm feeling close. Let's make it this way. If I have to move to New Zealand, I would rather move to Wanaka than to Taupo. So it's a bit normal that I have a better feeling with Wanaka race, but Taupo is still a great event. It's well run. It's a beautiful race. It's well organized. It's nice, but Wanaka is just better.
Yeah. You're one of the few people that's done the double, and the group of us that have done both Taupo and Wanaka in the same season is now defined. No one else can join that group. How did you find doing them so close together? And I suspect that was part of your plan as part of your preparation for Ultraman. But how did you find backing up doing another iron distance race a few weeks later?
The hardest part, I think, was more the mental stuff than the physical stuff, because when I arrived in Wanaka, I was well prepared. I was feeling strong. I was well prepared. I was ready. I was not injured. Everything was nice. And when I arrived in Wanaka, I think it was the was the Tuesday before the race, and we had horrendous weather between the Tuesday and race day. So I was just renting a small cabin and I just did nothing for 4 or 5 days. So when I arrived on the line on the race morning, I was just eager to race, and I just wanted to go, because when you are just lying down for 3 days, you just, I was yanking my chain for a while, and I just wanted to go. Had a great race. I think I finished 9 or 10 overall. I really enjoyed it, and then I moved back to the North Island. I went to Taupo, and I did very little training. The first week was, Cam Brown had me running the day after Wanaka, and it was not pretty, to be honest.
I can imagine.
But, it was a bit stiff, but it was a great move. And then I just did a bit of swimming, a bit of biking, but I just found that biking around Taupo was a bit too dangerous, and that's a problem we have today everywhere around the world. And I tried to ride the Taupo course on the week before, but I just decided against it, because the trucks, they're just going too close.
The logging trucks, the milk tankers.
Yes. And this road is not a nice road to ride. You have a lot of small road around, and so I did basically nothing. And because I had such a good race in Wanaka, I was just thinking I was a great race in topo. You can race as much as you want. At some point, your brain is always going to mess up with you, and you are always going to believe stuff that are. And when I found myself on the starting lane in the water, I was just thinking, and it's not happening very often with me, but I was just thinking, Jesus Christ, what the hell am I doing here? And the swim went quite okay, and then on the bike, it's the first time actually I was thinking, I'm not sure, because the bike course in Topo is quite boring. It's a 45k straight, then you turn around, come back in town, and you do it again. The road are quite shit. The tarmac is rough, and when mentally you are not in a happy place. It was a bit headwind coming back into town, and it was nothing was going well. I didn't really enjoy it, and I just found it hard. The thing is, once I dropped the bike, I was really happy. I was off the bike, and then I started the run, and physically, this is where Wanaka caught me. I think halfway through the marathon, I really started to have very stiff calf and ITB. But I would say was not that bad. Maybe for the reason that I was telling before is because I haven't been doing just light running and a bit of biking. So I think for everybody who want to do back-to-back race, the secret is to try to recover first, and replenish and recover.
The people I coached that are doing, or that were doing both, it's the only thing you can do really is ensure that recovery happens. Back when Wanaka used to be in January, you had sort of 5 or 6 weeks between. It was a little bit easier to you could recover a certain amount and then do a little bit of training and then start an early taper. But with them being 2 weeks, there's very limited opportunity there, isn't there?
Yeah. And that's also one of the philosophy of my coaching is, I think because when you race long course like Ironman distance or even longer, I think it's always an advantage to arrive a bit with too much rest in your leg than too much fatigue.
Yeah.
So, and mentally, I think everybody should do a back-to-back race once in a while. Can be 2 half, can be 2 full, can be a half and a full, or can be a full and half. But you learn a lot on yourself when you are doing that. And sometimes you surprise yourself because, even if mentally I had a shit race, I wouldn't have raced with in Topo. I would have told you I'm in the 10:30 range, and I ended up like 9:35 or 9:36, and I was really surprised at the end that I was able to back up 2 race in this kind of timing, and for me, leading up to Ultraman was what I think was just the right thing to do, and if you go all the way from, New Zealand is far from everywhere, but if you go all the way to New Zealand from Asia, US, or from Europe, I think you have to do the double because it gives you a good idea of what racing in New Zealand is, and that's such a beautiful place of the world. And one of the things I did between the 2 races, because we were in Topo the weekend before, and I think there is the swim across the lake.
Yep, that's right.
And so I did this swim, and then I backed it the next day, and so was just great to be able to enjoy New Zealand, race in New Zealand, travel a bit in New Zealand, and just do the race. Of course, it's always hard. Of course, it's always a bit tricky, and you have to focus on your recovery. But I think if you do pretty much on training, you're just going to be fine. Because if you are well trained, there is no reason you are not going to get through anyway. So.
No worries. If we just talk a bit more about your coaching business for a wee while. With 859, you've had a range of success with athletes and regularly have athletes qualifying for both Kona and the 70.3 World Champs. What do you consider some of your more significant successes?
For me, I would say above the timing or the athletic success of my athlete, what I'm really proud of is when I managed to turn the life of people around. And I had a few athletes who came through me. You know, you have athletes that they are with you for the long term, and you have athletes that just come for like 6 months. Usually, I don't take athletes on the short term. Like, if someone is coming to me and asking for a 6 months training program, I'm just not going to take it, because for me, embracing triathlon is more like a life-changing experience. So I would say the thing I'm the most proud of is when you have guys, they came to you, they are not super happy in their life because their work is eating them. They have a lot of family commitment. They have a bit of overweight issue. And once after a few months or a couple of years, you manage to turn their life around, and you see this guy who came to you with 10 kg overweight, with a shit life, when you see them changing, and I always believe that routine is giving you stability. And it's not the other way around, because a lot of athletes, they believe that, okay, I need to bring back stability in my life, and then the routine is going to be easy. And for me, it's very different. And I always told my guys, get into the routine first. You have your training program, you organize your life around your training program. If you have to wake up at 5 in the morning to do it, just do it. And then once you have this routine, you are going to discover it's going to give you stability in your life, just because you get more efficient with your time. You get more, when you have a 10 hours training program and you want to do it and you want to achieve something, then you are going to find solution to make it happen. So if to make it happen, it means you have to wake up at 5 in the morning just to have the session done, then you just do it. And then you arrive back home, your training is done. Then you arrive in your office, your training is done. You don't have in mind that you have a 1 hour hard training session looking you in the evening, because I don't think it's the right mindset,
So it's distracting for the training and your work.
Exactly. And you discover that when you push people to get in the routine of training, when you push people to do the session day after day, they are going to, because people are not stupid, people are just going to manage and organize their life around what they want to do. And it happened in a short time. Once you have a guy which is, after 1 month, he's getting in the training routine, he's going to discover, first of all, he's feeling better. Second, when he's coming back home in the evening, he have all the time he need for the family. So the family is happier, because if you go training when the family is sleeping, nobody is seeing it. Nobody has the feeling that you take time on the family. So that's very important part. And then the more you train, the fitter you are, the better you feel. And then it's the right mindset, and you are in the right, your head is working in the right way, where you feel better because you are better. Your family is happier because when you come back home, you are happier, and you are more efficient in your work. Because, and this is one of the biggest thing I want to point out, is very often the guy who are training a lot, they are super efficient working, just because they have the time, they have a schedule which is during the day when they want to do their training session. They are not spending time farting around on Facebook or all the other shit. You can see this guy, you never see them on social media during the day. They are just, either they are working, either they are with the family, or either they are training.
Yeah.
And it makes them very, very efficient. I have a guy actually, which is a big CEO in a big company in Singapore, and he was telling me all the athletes that are working with me, they are so much efficient at work.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to stay around 6 or 7 or 9 in the evening just to look good. They just do what they have to do, and once they are done, they just go back home. And I think as a coach, this is the biggest success we can see, is once you have guys, they manage to turn their life around, instead of going out with the friend to have a couple of beer and coming back home, they just try to organize their life around. They lose weight, they feel better, they eat better, they are happier people. I mean, what's not to like?
Yeah.
So
totally agree.
This is the biggest success for me, and this is what really make me happy. Much more than the athletic performance. Of course, I mean, when you have a guy qualifying for Kona or the world, 70.3 or any other big race, of course we are really happy. But when when I started coaching was more to try to help people, because for me triathlon has really changed my life. I mean, I wouldn't have in triathlon. I would certainly be like a junk of a human being at the now. Maybe I would be dead already, but yeah, triathlon has changed my life, and I think it's one way to try to give back to triathlon today, of doing a bit of coaching. So this is the whole philosophy behind my coaching is just to try to make people happier.
Awesome.
I think that's the thing. Yeah.
When you're planning out your season for your athletes, do you have key sessions at certain stages of a build-up that you use with your athletes?
Every single of my athletes, there is no one size fits all with us. So every athlete, they have a different training program. For one reason is, first of all, everybody have different physical ability. Everybody is recovery in a different way, and everybody have different family or work commitment. I have athlete, one is a pilot, so I mean it's just like a bloody nightmare, because the guy, they are always in and out, they never sleep in the same bed, so the recovery is paramount. And you have other guys who have very different life organization. So having key session leading to a big event is very hard, because you never know how your guy are going to recover. I'm not the kind of guy which is going to say, okay, 3 weeks out of the race, this session must be done, because if you don't do it. So I have some key session that I'm giving them time to time, but I give them when I feel they are ready for it.
Yeah.
When I feel that physically they are where they are, because it's very hard to give a session which is going to break an athlete, and then is broken mentally 3 weeks of the race, and then there is a very good chance he's going to have a shit race, or believe he's not able to do it. So
that mindset is a big thing, isn't it?
Yes, and it's always the carrot, having the carrot in front of you. So once you show people they are able to achieve more than what they can do, it's a mind-changing experience. For example, I have an athlete, is an average athlete, and his PB for a 1,000-meter run was 4:30. So he's not anywhere close to the top. And recently, because he's leading for a race at 70.3 in the Philippines in August, and I was just giving him every week, time to time, in the middle of a run session, a 1,000 meters flat out, to try to time himself, to see if he was improving. The first 2 weeks he was blocked at 4:30, and then last week he went 4:07.
Awesome.
For what reason? Yes.
Yep.
So, and this is not a big athletic change, it's just a mindset change. Once you make people believe they can do it, there is a very good chance it's going to happen. And we, as a coach, I think we have to lead by example also at sometimes. So that's why I'm racing often. That's why I'm racing any kind of distance, and that's why I'm trying to bring my athlete to do the same also, because first of all, racing a lot is very important, because it's like a rehearsal of your big race, and it's very easy to screw a big race because you've made a mistake in transition, or you forget something. So I believe that repetition is one of the secret. And the big case session for me, there is not really a key session, but the big key will be to make the people believe they are going to make it.
Yeah.
This weekend, last weekend in France, we had a very nice race. It's called the Alpsman. It's a bit like the French side of the Norseman. It's a lake swim, so they put you in a boat in the morning and they drop you in the middle of the lake. Then the bike course is like 4,000 meters plus elevation. And then the run, the first 25K are pretty much flat. And then if you manage to reach the 25K mark in less than 12 hours, you are allowed to climb up the mountain. And it's like a 17 kilometers climb. One of my athletes, friend of mine, which is training with me for like 5-6 years maybe now, he's a funny character. He's a guy who came to me the first ride we did together. He couldn't complete the first 80K. And he arrived, he was with a camelback, and he came back home completely cooked. And 2 years after, he was with me in Kona. So
awesome.
Big change. And so he was on this race, and the whole training was, I wanted him to believe that the race was really starting at the 25K mark on the marathon, because everybody which was going to ride too hard or run too hard were going to explode during the climb. And you really hold back for the back. You really hold back on the beginning of the marathon. And once you reach the 25K mark, you have a bell to ring to say that you are going up the mountain. So he rang the bell, and suddenly he was just feeling awesome, and he caught over 25 guys in the climb, just because he was mentally prepared to do that. I mean, physically he was prepared, but he was also mentally prepared to hold back for the first 3/4 of the race, and then give it all at the end. And he had an awesome race, and he was super happy with his result. And I think this is really good as a coach. It's very satisfying when you see one guy on what you've taught him, what you've tried, And you are a coach, and you know that, and we face that very often. You have guys, you tell them how the race is going to pans out, and they don't believe in you. They just say, "I'm doing it differently. I'm just going for it right from the go," and then they screw the race. And then you have the guy, they are just listening to you, and most of the time, this is the guy who are delivering. So this is very important when you have guy that, managing to make people believe they can do it. That's the most satisfying part for me.
Brilliant. How do you incorporate strength training into your athletes' build-up?
So I'm maybe off on a very different path from other coach on this part, because maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I try to. There is no strength training at all. For one reason,
I suspected you might be in a similar mindset to myself, and I'll let you develop and see where you go with it. But I suspect we're on the same ballpark here.
Basically, I might be hurting a few people, but when the athletes are joining me, I ask them to stop doing yoga, to stop doing stretching, and to stop doing core training. For one is been working with me in the past, the highest rate of injury were the guy doing yoga, were the guy doing stretching, and were a guy going in the gym. Strength training is very important, but I believe it's in strength training done in running, in swimming, and in biking. So if we talk about swimming, I love paddle. I love paddle work. I have set of my guys.
Specificity of strength training, isn't it?
Exactly. I have some swimming set. The guy, it's like 100 meters, and then they go out of the pool and they do 5 or 6 push-ups, and they jump back in the pool and they do it again. Paddle training is very important. At the moment it's the summertime the weather is shit today, but it's supposed to be summertime in Europe. So I don't swim at all in the pool during the summertime. We are only in lake, just for one reason, because 100% of the triathlon we are doing are open water swim. Can be windy, can be choppy, so we have to go in the lake. We have to feel the water, we have to swallow some water, we have to suffer in the water. That's one of the reasons, because when you swim every time in the pool, a pool is a controlled environment. It's like if you do all your training on the bike, physically you are ready, but if you go out and then it's bloody windy, mentally it's going to play trick with you. So this, for me, paddle swimming in lake, last year when I was training for Ultraman, just before I did a long swim run with my wife, and the way I was training is I was putting my wife with a rope in the water, and she was putting our little one in a boat. So I was swimming with massive paddle, and it was like a train in the lake. So of course it's just like a 40-minute training session, because when you get out you are just like your shoulder, you cannot feel them, but that's such an advantage in terms of strength training. So this is what we do. I would say a lot of paddle swimming, a lot of big chain ring training on the bike, heel reps, short, very high intensity on the bike, and this is very much the same of what you are doing in a gym without the chance of injuring yourself. And on the run, I love the heel running.
The crossover between doing it specifically like that and the actual sport is massive, as opposed to training the muscles, but in a totally unspecific way.
Completely, and we have so much opportunity outside to do some strength training. It's climbing stairs. I have a guy which is living in Shanghai. I'm coaching. He can barely run outside for pollution reason. So all the strength training he's doing is working at the 30th floor of his office. He's climbing the floor by the stairs.
Yeah,
that's strength training. So, and it's not waste of time going in the gym. It's not going in a air-conditioned environment doing your training where the guy in front of you might be sick or might be you never know. When you are living in a 25 million people city, you have to try to protect your athlete also in any way you can. So yeah, any kind of strength training for me is done either swimming, biking, or running.
Awesome. What about your personal favorite run workout? What's that?
And since we are back in Europe, I rediscovered the joy of running long. And because in Singapore, when I was doing a long run, was usually barely above 2 hours of running, just because of my dehydration issue. So the favorite set, I have a set that I really love and this is what I'm giving to my athlete out during their preparation when I feel they are ready. It's a rep of 800 meters. So it can be anywhere between 800 meters to 25 800 meters, depending about their ability and how the guy is fit at the moment. But that's one of the key sessions. And mentally, when you have like 15, 20, or even 25 rep of 800, that's mentally a big things. And you discover that most of the guys, they are a bit scared about it. But once they've done it, I mean, it's all about the pacing, because if you give them 800 meters at 4-minute pace, they are not going to make it. But if you pace them on a regular basis, or if you join them for the session, or if you make them doing it 2 by 2, even if just one guy is joining you for just 5 or 6 or 10 reps, is changing the feeling. So that's one of the key sessions. That's one of the key sessions I've taken out from my ex-coach, Jürgen Zach. And it's really a session. I think it's really talking to a lot of athletes. It's tough physically and it's tough mentally, but once you've done it, you just feel that you've done it. You've done something big, and if you can get through that, there is a very good chance that you are ready for that. Another session is I love. Very often in the morning, I give my guy a very long, like anywhere between 1 hour and 90 minutes of very easy running. A guy which is going to be close to 10 hours, and an Ironman is going to run at 5:30 pace, so it's more like jogging, very easy jogging. And then in the evening, having a very hard and intense short treadmill session.
Yeah.
That's some of the key session I have. Then you have a lot of variability about how long the first run in the morning and how intense the second run in the evening. But it's all different about the athlete. When you have, I have some athletes, they are big unit, and you have a guy which is 85 kg and 194 or 195. You can give them this kind of guy running like 2 or 3 hours long run, because you are just going to break themselves. Because we all know that the longer you are running, the more you are deteriorating your form and more you are increasing your risk of injury. So I have one of my athletes which is going to race Roth with me. He's a big unit, he's 193. He's not big like a runner, but in his preparation, he had a lot of double run and he had also a lot of triple run.
Yeah.
So sometimes 1 hour in the morning, at lunchtime on the treadmill, and then again 30 to 40 minutes in the evening. And you just discover that the people are recovering much faster between the session. They can carry a higher speed, and at the end, the benefits are bigger.
Awesome. No, the double. It's the first time I've heard of the triple runs being used like that. My old swim coach got me to do triple swims when I got injured and couldn't run or cycle 20-something years ago, and that my swimming just improved massively by swimming 3 times a day.
Exactly.
You can
That's a lot,
bring that on.
and it's the same for the swim. And as we discover, I mean, sometimes one of the motto I have with my athlete is, because I mean, you certainly have seen that also with your athlete, but athletes sometimes when they are a bit time short, they will easily find 2 hours to go for a bike ride, but they won't find 30 minutes to go to the pool. So one of my motto is to say, if you have a swim set, if you are not feeling it, if you are broken, if you are tired, doesn't matter. You just go to the pool. Even if you swim just 10 or 15 minutes, you swim 10 or 15 minutes, because swimming is so much important, not in the overall time if you are racing Ironman, but in terms of how fresh you are going to exit the water and how are you going to be able to push on the bike early on.
Yeah.
And look, in Kona, in 10 minutes, you have 1,000 guys exiting the water. So if you save 30 seconds, there is 45 guys less to overtake on the bike. So that's 45 less chance to get a penalty. So anything we can make on the swim is good, and the feeling with the water doesn't come free. You have to spend time in the water, and this is where it's very important to go in the lake. If it's cold, usually we start with my wife the first open water in April here, and we did our first swim this year. The water was just 11 degrees, just because on the race anything can happen. Last year when we raced Wanaka, the water was 16 or 15 degrees and was just freezing cold. And if you are not
That's
used
a warm
to be
day
in the
for
cold
Wanaka.
water, yes, normally. So if you are not used to being in cold water, if you are not used to being choppy water, then there is a very good chance once you arrive on the beach and you see the wave of the cold water, you are going to be scared and you are going to have a bad day. So be prepared, be mentally ready, know you can do it, and then there is a very good, very, very fair chance you can effectively do it. So
yeah. What about your favourite bike workout?
Well, it's all depend about where you are standing. If you are in the city, I would say it's mostly like a turbo session, and not everybody have the chance to be able to ride outside. And I'm training a lot indoor, even if we have very nice road here in France. But the mentality of the people behind the wheel of the car have really changed in the past year. And the last thing I want is to have athletes being pancaked and or being shot by a car or run over by a truck or anything. So I think, and the other thing is for the people who are a bit time short, it's very, very effective to go on the turbo. I found that Zwift is a perfect tool because you can have easy ride on Zwift. You can have hard ride. So I would say my favorite set, it's what is called the Tabata set, and it's something which is, so some people when you give them, they're just looking at you and they say, well, this is nothing, this is just like 1 minute 10 maximum effort. But then at the end of the day, when they start reading through the set and they discover that the turbo have to be fixed pretty strongly to the ground if they don't want to find themselves on the floor. So yeah, Tabata set is basically some rep of very, very, very hard effort. It's, when you do it right, it's 7 reps of 20 seconds flat out with only 10 seconds recovery in between.
Yeah.
So that's a very good. Your power at the same level for the 7 reps, there is a very good chance you are ready for racing and you are going the right direction. So that's a session which is not coming very often, but that's a session I like to give to my athlete because it's very efficient. It's, I believe in one thing is, even if you do Ironman, most of the people that don't do enough intensity. And the older we grow, I believe that we should decrease the volume and increase the intensity. Just because it's hard to keep a high level of power output when it's easier to keep going for a long, long time. When we grow older, it's easy to go for 5, 6, or 7 hours, but nobody wants to be hurting even for 20 or 30 seconds. I did an Olympic distance 2 days ago, and when I arrived close to the finish line, there was a guy coming for me, and he was just like running me down. And we ran the first.
I saw that on your social media.
That was just, and this guy is a legend. I know him. We've been racing many, many times against each other, and he's a super fast runner. So I could have, I would have, I would have enjoyed more running 30 more K than the last kilometers with him, because we ran so hard and such a high intensity. But it's good. I think this is the right way to try to keep very high intensity very often when you are in your training, because this is, it's like an engine of a car. If you used to rev him, then the engine is going to work very well at low rev. If you never rev your engine, then it's going to be, you have, a lot of shit in the engine, and then at some point there is a very good chance you are going to break it if you have to push it. So, and it's also very good in terms of strength training, because once we push hard, you mobilize everything. Every muscle in your body is mobilized, and every muscle is pushing, and I think it's very interesting to do this kind of set, and it's also mentally very rewarding. So that's a set I love to do. The Tabata set is very, very interesting set for me.
Awesome. What's your number one training tip? Your top training tip?
Consistency. I'd rather have a guy doing a 30-minute session every day of the week than doing nothing for 5 days and smashing himself in the weekend and then needing 3, 4, 5 days to recover. So usually when the people join me they take me as a coach, they discover that a lot of the training is done much slower than what they used to do. But despite training slower, they are racing faster. The biggest mistake that most of the people do, they are not very much training. They are racing each other during the week set, and they are not racing hard enough on the weekend.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to do a lot of slow training. I had the chance to be in Nusa 3-4 years ago, where Frodo was there. He was training, and I remember seeing him doing 6-minute kilometers jog. So if it's good for Jan Frodeno, I think it's good for everybody, and it also helps your recovery. I love the long, slow run session just because it puts you on your feet for like 2-3 hours, and this is what, most of the athletes, they are not feeling happy or fulfilled if they are not coming home broken.
Yeah.
You see that when you are organizing a camp or something, most of the people there just want to go too hard, too early, and then either they got sick or they got too tired or they get an injury because they are pushing harder than what they are used to push. So for me, having a consistency in your training, and we are coming back of what we were talking before, is more consistency is going to give you routine, and routine is going to give you stability, and all that is moving in the right direction. Having an athlete doing his set day after day is always more successful than having an athlete skipping one set every 2 just because he's going too hard and he's too tired the next morning. Yep. Or too mentally broken to do the important session.
So couldn't agree more. I've had 2 conversations today already about that exact topic. So
yeah, so you see,
good to know I'm not the only coach that has that message.
Yeah, and when I was back in Singapore 2-3 weeks ago, I organized, because I have athletes pretty much all around the world, and some of my athletes are in Singapore, so we organized a camp in a small island in Bintan. It was just a short camp, 2 days, but in 2 days we did 5 sessions. And the whole first day, I was just keep on telling my guy, slow down. That's 5 sessions in 2 days. You are not used to that. Just slow down. And sure enough, at the end of the first day, one was already cooked, and 2 days after the camp, one got sick because he just pushed too hard.
Yeah.
So consistency and trying to stay injury-free as long as possible, because if you don't get sick, if you don't get injured, then the consistency is going to come very easily.
Awesome.
And
sweet.
Yeah.
So finally, we'll wrap things up. Where do you get most of your clients from, and what's the best way for potential athletes to touch base with you?
So because I've been living in Singapore, I have part of my athletes that are still in Singapore, and because I'm coming back in Singapore pretty much every month, I'm able to see my athlete, and I love to see my athlete quite often, because you can see the body change, You can see how the people, I love to go riding with my athlete because you can see if they have changed a position on their bike or if they have changed something, and it's good to see them. So I would say 50% of my athletes are in Asia.
Yep.
I have few guys in the Middle East, and the rest of them are in Europe. So we just put a new website online yesterday. It's 859coaching.com. So you can go there. You have the contact to contact me.
I'll link in the description down below so people can find that nice and easily as well.
Great, thank you. And also through Facebook, or they can contact me directly on Facebook or through Messenger, Arnaud Selukov, and they will find me. And there is no, I don't request any minimal level of fitness or ability. I just want people to be motivated. That's the most important. And once you decide to make the step towards taking a coach, be me, be you, be anybody else, I think one of the things, right decision, because once you decide to take a coach, usually the mindset should be, I'm discharging myself of the responsibility of my coaching, and I'm paying someone to tell me what to do. So I have to accept what this guy is telling me. And the biggest success I have, and most of the coach have, is once the athlete is just accepting the idea that he has to change what he's doing. Because if you decide to take a coach, it's because you understand that something that you are doing is not right. So if you go towards a coach, just accept the idea that you may have to change your routine, you may have to change your set, and you may have to accept what the coach is saying you, because there is a very good chance that is right. And one of the big things I try to work with my athlete is to try to improve their nutrition. Because personally, I've been vegetarian for 8 years and I'm vegan for almost a year now. And when we decided to do that was mostly for ethical reason.
Yeah.
But it has changed my life in such a way. It's just amazing. And since I'm vegan, and as a French, it's hard to drop the cheese and to drop all the dairy product. But I have to say it has been quite an easy move. Once you decide to do it, then it's easy to accept it. And once it's even more easier. But for me, in terms of physical change, it has changed the way my body is recovering. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
My run has improved a lot, and I'm feeling lighter. I'm recovering faster, and even if I didn't need it, I've managed to drop 3 kg without asking it. So and I think I always take the image that our body is like an engine. If you put dirty fuel in your engine, there is a very good chance that your car is not going to work. If you put clean fuel, then there is a very good chance your engine is going to run very well. So eat well, eat ethical, eat organic as much as you can, and you will see the change is massive.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today, Arnaud. We'll
Thank you.
Wrap things up and say au revoir. And I'll look forward to catching up with you at an event either in New Zealand or maybe in Australia someday in the future, or maybe I might get over to Europe and go do Roth.
Well, you are welcome, my friend. If you come here, we have a room. I have, I think, 17 or 18 bike waiting for a friend to come and riding with me. So there is always room for people to join us here in Europe. So thank you very much for having me today, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I might have to take you up on that offer.